I'll just write it down.
Equation and a point.
So you're given an equation. It is an equation, like you said that. You know, you're given an equation. What is the equation? X cubed y squared. Do you know what I'm saying? You're like, what the heck is a cos of pi y? Like, what does that look like? So there are some graphs in here, right? Some of these have their graphs, so you can look at it. You know what I'm saying? If you want to look at these, and you can always input an x and solve for y if you wanted to see what some of these things look like. You know what I'm saying? Some are harder than others, but you can always make a picture of it. It'll just take you a while to do, because you can't do it on your calculator. So, what's the first question asked in 39, you guys? Hold on, everyone listen up, because this is where, like, we need to know what the question is asking. It says the point negative 1, 1. Prove that is a point on the graph. How do you do that? Take the derivative, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, some people just, we're in calculus, take the derivative. Take the derivative. Like, exactly, because I got to take the derivative. I got to take the derivative. What is the question asking? You know what I'm saying? I got a point, I'm going to plug into the derivative, you know? Like, we just get so used to it because that's what we're doing. The question asks, like, prove that this is a point on the graph. So, like, you just, like, plug in an x and what's the y? In this case, you can't really do that. So what you can do, though, is plug in x and y and just make sure the left side equals the right side. Do you know what I'm saying, you guys? Where before, you'd have to, like, input an x and just make sure you got the y or whatever. That's really all we can do here. So if I put in a negative 1 and the x cubed, I get negative 1 times 1 squared, so it's negative 1 over here, equals the cos of pi times 1. So what's the cos of pi? Everyone together, pi brings us over here. What is the cosine of pi? What is the x length of this reference triangle?
Negative 1.
Yeah. So since these are equal, then that's the relationship. That is a point on the graph. Does that make sense? So I don't know what this thing looks like, but I know that this point is on this graph. That's part A. That's what it's asking. What does part B ask? Uh-oh. I got to find the slope of the tangent line. What is that? That's derivative. You know what I'm saying? What the derivative equation gives you is the slope of the tangent line. So now I'll take the derivative. Here's where the calculus comes in. Does that make sense? So we got, what's over here? What rule is this? What rule is this? Chain rule. It's a trig chain rule. So laying everything out, it's going to look something like this. Derivative of the first, times the second, plus the first, times the derivative of the second. So when you take the derivative of y squared, knock, 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 who's inside the squared? I don't know yet. I have to do the power rule. Bring down the 2 times y raised to the 1 times the derivative of what's inside. That's y prime. Does that make sense, you guys? Equals. What's inside the cosine function? Who's home? I don't know. Negative sine. I don't know who's home. What's for dinner tonight? I can't look in the windows. Times, what's the derivative of pi y? In terms of x.
No,
Pi is a constant. You could do it, but what's the derivative of pi?
0.
It would be 0, so that part would be gone. So this is pi times the derivative of y. Does that make sense, you guys? Now, so now calculus is done. I'm taking the derivative of that first line. So, what can you do? Solve for y prime, and then what? Plug in the point to do what? Find the slope of the what?
Tangent.
Yes. So you could solve for y prime. You don't have to, Allie Connolly. What else can you do? I can just plug it in right here if I wanted to. Why not? You know what I'm saying? This is just an algebra problem. If I wanted to plug in my point into here, all the calculus is done. Let's do it. This would be 3 times negative 1 squared is what? 1 times 1 squared is, so that's just a 3. 2 times negative 1 cubed is what? Negative 1 times 1 times y prime equals negative, what's sine of pi times 1? What's the sine of pi? Let's do it. Sine of pi. Here goes pi. There she goes. What is the y length of this reference triangle?
0.
Yeah, this whole thing is gone. Does that make sense, you guys? Because this is 0 times pi times y prime. Since it's all multiplied together and there's a 0 in there, the whole thing equals 0. Does that make sense, you guys? So this is still just an algebra problem. I'm going to bring this over here or bring this over here, whichever one you want. And then solve for y prime. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yep.
If you're just solving for the value, again, you're going to have to solve at some point or another. If you don't like all the tedious, with all the symbols, just plug in the point as soon as you can. If you want, you'll still get the same number. Does that make sense, Joanna? Lots of silence today. How we feeling? Good? So let's check out 41 real quick before we move on. 41, what are we given?